Hey guys, it's Baileywiki and it's May of 2024. It's release day. So get ready. This is going to be fun. For those of you who like to build towns and cities and settlements, there's a ton of new assets for you. But there's like more really big news. That is that most of the Baileywiki library is now in mass edit. So if I go into mass edit and I go to the all tab and I type in new, I will get all of the new stuff, first of all, that is released this month. And you can see there's quite a bit of it. But more than that, if you just kind of exit out of here and you go into your external compendiums, which is where you're going to find all of my stuff, you have compendiums like construction tiles now. And when you open it, you have like another 6,000 tiles all loaded in and searchable within mass edit. So, you can just search for stuff like tables and chairs and other things. And if it's just a tile in my library, you can find it, drag it in, and you're in business. The other big announcement, if you haven't seen it already, is the new mass edit brushes. So all of those tiles, it's the reason I brought all of these tiles into mass edit, because now you can create brushes to do really cool stuff. If we wanted to, for example, spam these benches around, we can grab all of them, right click, add it to the brush, and it will open up this little dialog window over here. I'm going to reset mine to 0, and I'm going to have it randomly set these benches down. You can see it's cycling through all the different benches that I added to the brush. I can change their parameters. I can do all sorts of other stuff. Check out my tutorial on how to use it, but it's huge. It's like bringing Dungeondraft right into Foundry. Besides all the 2D stuff, the 3D release from the map making team is just insane this month. I mean, I can't believe the artistry of these scenes that the team's come up with. We got hit by a little bit of illness, Swift did, so we're going to be putting the props out just about a week later this month. But the scenes themselves are pretty breathtaking, and multiple versions of them. So check those out. And then for Dungeondraft, tons of new stuff, mostly around vegetation. This was all the things that went into creating the yards and gardens for this city expansion here. So check that out as well. You guys will have a lot to play with ahead of next month, which is when we're going to go into interiors. So with that, let's get into the release. So make sure you update everything, towns, premium, mass edit, and even nuts and bolts, and you'll get a bunch of this new stuff. So let me walk you through it. Oh, one other thing. It doesn't say it on my screen, but yours will say Baileywiki 2D maps. It'll replace modular scenes. This is now the only compendium that has Baileywiki scenes. All of the scenes, all the Baileywiki scenes since time began are now in one compendium. It's like almost 800 scenes. So now you can also search scenes all in one place. So everything is super easy to find going forward. All right, so this release is all about cities. And so I put a bunch of really useful items in here that you're going to want to take a look at. So you have all of your street lamps and lampposts and just lighting in general. These all have lights included with them. You can drag them in, and they've got like overhead tiles, and they're all set up in such a way that they'll work really well out of the box. You even have different torches now. You can drag these into the scene, and you can just butt these right up against a wall. And these are all activatable just by clicking on them, so you can toggle, your players can toggle them off. You also have all of these braziers now, and they have ones with tops and bottoms. These have multiple pieces to that. If you right click it, it will cycle through randomly the tops and the bottoms, and you can click on it to turn it off. You also have some candle clusters. These don't come as prefabs. These you just look for candle, and it's actually going to be a tile. And you can drag the candle multi in, and it will come with a light already on it. So if I turn the lights down, you would see the light associated with this candle. And if you click on it, it makes a nice little blowing out the candle noise. You also have these signal fires, which I really like. They're also multiple pieces. You can left click a signal fire and put it out. There's actually two tiles on top of each other with animated tiles in the middle. Anyway, you click on it again and it will ignite. you can go into the Monk's Active Tile stuff and change it to just the GM allowing that, something like that. But they all work the same way. And if you right click them, they'll actually randomize as well. So you've got not only these signal fires, but you've got just these bonfires here that all work kind of the same way. But they're super cool, very effective for just dropping into a scene if you want like a big bonfire. A couple of lanterns. These lanterns can also change. So if you just like right click them, you can cycle through different types of lanterns. This lantern is, more of a see-through. You can see the inside of it. This one is not. I also redid the fire tiles just to make them really easy to use now that we've got mass edit. Right, so if we add fire tile random, this is to our brush. Let's create some randomness with the rotation. We'll create randomness with the scale. Good, looks great. You start putting this around a scene and you can just light a scene on fire. So because the fire tiles are irregular shaped and they're rotating and stuff, it just sort of randomizes where the fire goes. Works pretty good, right? And it even sets a tagger tag called fire tile. So if you ever want to like grab all of them and like make them all turn out all at once, you can just hide them and it will hide the effect from being visible to your players. So you can do automated stuff like that where you can like automatically light a scene on fire. Okay, we also have lots of new towers. These towers are built as facades and as enterable towers. You're looking at the facades right now. And so if you just look up tower facade, you have all of these facade towers here. You can double click it, drag it to the scene, hold down Alt to resize, move it around, all that stuff. These facades have lights attached to them, but you can't actually enter them, right? So these are meant to like dress up a scene. Everything is colorable in terms of all these red colors at the top. And if you right click it, you can actually change it once it's in the scene just using multi-face tiles. So drop it in, change it around until you find something that you really, really like. This one is entirely randomized. So if I look up Arrow Tower random, you get this one. And when you put it in a scene and you double right click it, it randomizes everything. And by the way, the towers aren't just randomized on the roof. Let's turn on levels mode. And you can see that it's got a base around it as well. Well, if we right click, we can change the base, and that just gives the tile the tower an interesting feel whenever you launch it. Like this looks like a really old style tower, right? So you can also adjust that. If you want to get to it, you have to get to your background layer and you can turn on quick edit mode. And then you can work on changing this. If you double click into this tile, you can see all the other tiles that are available to serve as a base. Okay, now we have this special tile. This you're going to see a lot in this release. This is a spawner tile, and it spawns a terrain like this, but it automatically sizes it to whatever the size of the scene is. This one's shrunk down so you can come in and play with it. But if you click this, you get a little menu options, right? So you can adjust the position. And in that case, you can move it up, down, left, right. You can rotate it. So you can really kind of find, and the way I designed this, these streets are kind of endless. So you can really kind of find the street that you want. Maybe it's a straightaway. Maybe you want to zoom out a lot. Maybe you want to zoom in a lot. So it's flexible to just move things around until you find, a scenario that you want to start decorating with houses. Click on it again, you can change the overlay. Now, the one I've included in your scenes will take you directly to the street overlay. If you want to change any overlay at all, I recommend just searching for tileable, and you can change to any overlay that's got tileable information on it, or that's got that tileable tag in the name. But here's all these other alternatives to the city streets, right? So here's like a desert one, here's a rural one, and if you select it, it will change the background, and then you can just change the position. You can change it either with this function or, see, like here we've got a nice little map that maybe, we put a tavern here or something and your players kind of walk up to it. You can also just use the token magic effects edit as well. And you can come in here and edit all the things if you want a little bit more fine-tuned control. And then when you've got it set where you want, you can click it again and just say don't show again. What that does is that will just deactivate the tile so that the monk's active tiles doesn't work anymore. So it's just like clicking this on and off. So if you ever want to use it again, just turn it back on, reactivate it, and now you can click it again, no problem. You can find this spawner tile if you just look up spawn. It is under tiles, or you can find it under all. And you can see it here, unlimited terrain spawner. So if I drag this onto the scene and then I select, maybe I want the snowy version, for example. Then just refresh your scene. And here you've got all of your snowy streets now filling the scene entirely. And again, you just click it and you can start making adjustments from there. We also have now a bunch of benches. So these benches come in multi-face tile style, so you can drop one in, and then if you change your mind, you can change it to another type of bench. But lots of really flexible benches you can drop into any scene. These are city scenes, so you want to be able to put benches around. We've got a bunch of tree canopies now, these larger ones, smaller ones, and colorable ones. We've got a bunch of cool stuff with the colorable tiles. For example, there's a macro now in the latest release. It's called the Bush Tree Summer V2. And if we execute this macro, it will enable a brush with the settings already applied to just spam a bunch of trees with summer settings. It gives them all overhead tile settings and everything else. So you can, just to experiment, I've done a tutorial that releases today where you can see how I created this, and you can create your own using the new mass edit brushes. I also have a bunch of signs now. So we have like both sandwich boards that can sit on the ground, and then we've got signs that are hanging signs. They're all set up as prefabs, and you can come into a sign, and if you click it, it has, it'll show you what the shop name is. If you want to change that, these are overhead tiles because this is an overhead sign. Just turn on quick edit mode, double click into it, and you can see if anyone clicks on it, it gives a name of ye old shop. Just come in here and change the name of the shop. And now anyone can click on that sign and be able to see it. But that's not the only thing that it does. Notice I've got just the symbol attached, and it is a separated item here. If I right click it, we have a black background so you can't see it, but I have other symbols that I can select. There's bread and other things. Or I can just double click into it and I can go see all of the options here under these symbols. That's how you can create some quick and dirty signs, be able to put them up. You can also just right click these hanging boards and you can cycle through the different options. Same thing with the sandwich boards down here. We also have a bunch of new wells. These wells have some toppers, which you can delete, of course. They also come in colorable and non-colorable varieties. So I found you need lots of wells in scenes. They just kind of are a fitting sort of addition, especially with some of the stuff coming out in this release. Then we have all of these ivy and hedgerows. These are great for putting on top of walls or just making their own kind of hedges. You've got a bunch of planters and sort of, formal hedges. These replace some of the older ones we had previously. We have a bunch of new, prefab vendors. These are like flower vendors and stuff like that. Thought we needed a little splash of color. These are also added to all the other vendors. So they're like one big composite. So if you look up vendor, there's lots of vendor options. Here's all the tiles, but you also have vendor with and without rotation. So if I just add this to a brush, this has, again, everything built into it. So I can just modify it more with the brush if I want to, or I can just start placing these around and it will put my vendors in manually. But each vendor, if you right click it, has every other vendor. So you can really just put them in and then change things around as much as you like. You can even I think double right click. Let's see what I set up. I don't want to change this one. Oh yeah, you can right click it and it will also randomize the image. So lots of ways to just spam vendors around your scene and then change them on the fly. I also gave you fully furnished and working towers as well. So these towers you can actually enter, climb up to the top. You can see these replace the old style towers. I wish I had a copy of what the old style towers look like. These are significantly updated using all the new art styles, mixing like wood and stone. I think it works really, really well together. But like I said, your players can just drop in. They all have lights, so the lights will go off at night. But look at the interiors. These are significantly updated interiors where now, it just matches the new art style and it's just really, really rich. And you can explore these different towers, change them around, and do other stuff. But many of these are like 4 or 5 stories tall, so lots to be able to do there. Lots of colorable things. Your flag here, you can also look up as a prefab. If I press the play button, it will wave, and I can change it to different colors. We also have all of these different entrances and windows. So if you have a tower that you like and you want to introduce in the tower, like, a door or a window, like any of these windows, or this is a arrow slit, you can just drop that tile right into that area of the tower and you can introduce arrow slits and other things, right? So you can see some arrow slits on this tower. You can change those to anything else. So just really flexible, gives you a lot to play with. And again, all the bases are customizable as well. And last but not least, we have yards and gardens. These are awesome. They mash together in lots of different ways to let you create underfoot detail without having to spend a lot of time doing it. And you can see they're really varied with color and greenery. This is actually one of the first times I've used so much greenery. These patches just kind of mash together really easily. But you can spam these around and throw in some pergola overhead. These are all available as overhead tiles as well. And it just makes it super easy to design your scenes. Now, these yards are designed in a way that you can use any edge to create the yard. So I'll show you what I mean here in a second, but these can go underneath facades where you only have maybe this edge poking out. And then the next facade, maybe you just have this edge poking out. So it gives you kind of unlimited ability to create yards and retaining walls and stuff like that. So feel free to, use them. You can upsize and downsize them as well. They're available in tiles, but they're also available as full prefabs. So these prefabs have lights and walls and other things. So depending on what you want to drop into your scene, how much work you want to do, how many things you want to have be, explorable, you have either prefab or non-prefab options. Okay, so City Street 1. This took about, I think, 8 minutes to make with all the new systems. So check out some of my Design With Me sessions that I'll be releasing here over the next couple of weeks. But you can see the terrain that I customized on the bottom. I just kind of moved it around. We've got like a, working candle shop here. Everything's colorable, and you just plop, 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 drop these, facades in. You can see how the yards are working. You see how it just creates this underfoot detail, and it's just a tile, right? It's just that, just rotated in a certain way, and changed around as you go, right? So really easy to build a scene like this now. Another scene, same thing, just rotated, kind of put everything around the the street structure that I wanted. Got a couple of towers with this sort of defensive wall. Your players can walk right underneath there using some of those new assets. And then you can see like some of the trees with their autumn colors, and another yard that kind of makes it look like maybe this is a church, top of a very, very tall church. Another scene that took 10 minutes to make. Just showing the flexibility of the system. I mentioned you have straightaways, so you can make very, very long streets out of the same exact spawner tile that I showed you earlier, and then just span your things around it, put in your real buildings where you want a real building, right? So that you can actually enter this tavern if you want to. It's got sounds that play and an inn and things that players can stay in. And you've got some working towers that go up through the levels as well. The city park shows you how some of these grassy areas just kind of mash together to create a park. Use the same principle to create the basic street configuration, and then I just started dropping in components around the edges to make it all tie together. But these, remember, all look good at night. They're all designed to be lit, and at night these walls, your players can like start inside here. Maybe they crawled out of this well, and then they can make their way around. And as they get close to this tavern, they see a little tavern sign here. They can click on it. Or remember, you can always turn this off when you're ready. This is the dancing barmaid, right? And then you can put a monk's active tile here and teleport them into this facade, which maybe it's a tavern, right? So you can change the sign around, change the facade, really make any of these buildings entry points to other maps. This is the same exact scene, but with snowy elements applied. I'm going to do a design with me session to show you how I did this, but I've got a special macro. It came out in the latest release, but it says token magic effects adjustment. So winter snowy. So what it does is it desaturates tiles and it lets you then apply like filter, or lets you apply like frosty overhead and stuff like that to it. I just changed the background to one of the frosty backgrounds, and I've got a pretty believable scene that's winterized. I did just swap the trees out for some of the snowy trees as well. But just want to show you how flexible the system is. I love this scene. It's the whole, this thing in the middle is actually a big giant prefab. You can take it out, delete it, move it. It's actually available in my prefab set. If you look up crater, you can find it here, crater, hole, rubble animated. If you drag it out, it's a kind of ready-made crater. You can have all sorts of fun stuff come out of there, and it looks really good at night as well. But it's just using a mix of animated tiles, some rubble cast around to, basically make this thing look like it was introduced from hell. But if you remove it, you see everything is very clean underneath. Another city street, this time using some of the ruins components, so you can see how those can enter into a scene and create this sense of height and depth. So this is like a defensive wall, a tower that's a working tower. Your players make their way through the garden to actually get in, or they could scale this wall over here. You can see how the merchants are kind of splayed about, just to give you some inspiration on how you can make your own. The palace entrance uses a lot of the same components, plus some components of the past. And we're actually tinting these tiles now. We're tinting the tiles so that they match the color. See, it's got a slight color to it, of the background. And then we've brought in some of the braziers and some of the other components, a working tower in the middle, and your players can be at the entrance of maybe a castle or a monastery or something else. You can change these statues out for something else. If you want to change the decor, you can make this really ominous, that kind of thing. Now, this scene you're going to get a lot of mileage from. This is an empty template scene. So it's got the spawner already in it. You can click it, adjust the position, change everything around, zoom in and out. Everything around the outside is just a single tile. So this is a single tile that just frames the scene, and it's got some tree canopies that you can recolor to fall colors, that kind of thing. But we take this then as a starter scene, and then we can make other things from it. Here's an example of that same starter scene, but now it's, I've reconfigured this kind of big open kind of piazza thing in the middle. I've dropped in the statue, and we've got some enterable buildings. This happens to be a 3-story building with tons of stuff to discover, but everything is all set up. We've got this little kind of dining area out here. We've got maybe some vendors that are set up, and you can see all of the components that we made just now in use, right? We've even got like yards and stuff like that kind of built into some of these things. Here's an example of how you can create a city street with enterable buildings, right? So we've got a few that they can enter. This is a 3-story tavern. This is a weapon shop. But you can see the players just see facades everywhere, and then they can discover that there are enterable buildings. So this is an example to give you some inspiration on how you can really make some large-scale city districts and have your players be able to explore inside of them, okay? Sort of an extreme example of how you can use all the gardens together. This is the castle gardens. It looks really, really phenomenal at night. There's lots of areas in here that your players can explore. You can, drop them in one place and let them run around, maybe do quests or meet NPCs and that kind of thing. But the idea is just to show you how much these different assets can kind of get all mashed up, and you can make, very simple garden scenes out of these. And finally, the village street. I just wanted you to show you what an example of the village texture looks like. Again, we could click on this and change it to city texture and move things around, and we've got a very, very different scene. I wanted to show you this too. We've got these animated effects. I don't know if I've shown you those very often, but I actually have a macro for leaves swaying that have different levels of wind affecting the leaves. So it just gives you that slight little bit of animation that your players will at some point notice and they'll get tickled by, but you've got some working buildings and things that they can enter here as well. And last but not least, I remastered the entire town. So if you guys have seen the town before, a lot of you came to us because of the town. It's been like, I don't know, a year since we touched the town, and some of the teleports weren't working, and it was on some old. So you can now come in here and the town is totally updated using all of the new artwork and the yards and everything else. Everything's working and it's super fun. Again, this is modeled after Phandalin. So you can go in these buildings, you can explore, you can go underground. There's quite a few scenes. There's something like 18 scenes to the town. It's all of these. And they're all linked together through a map that you can teleport to and from. There's, again, underground places. There's a farmland puzzle that your players can navigate. So super happy to see this updated and using all the latest stuff. Okay, so with that, we're going to segue over to Swift to talk about the 3D stuff.
Hi guys, Swift here again to talk about the 3D side of Baileywiki. This month we've got some pretty great maps here, starting off with this Riverside Village map made by the very talented Efant. This one is a full village, made mostly with the props from last month, for that great frontier style, and then a very stylish circular piece of terrain around it. Something that we think about whenever we're making an exterior map is how to represent the edges of the maps. Sometimes we leave it bare, sometimes we black it out, other times we'll try and merge it into the textured infinite matte. In this case, Efant's gone for this really nice chunk of earth look, as if this whole place has been sliced out of the ground and physically lifted up to be on our table. It gives a really nice diorama feel from far away that I quite like, but up close, the curved edge blends into the background nicely. We've got a couple of different areas of the map here, like the forest just outside of town, this kind of main town centre and dock area. And then, of course, this bridge over here that I quite like as well. A nice narrow choke point with these walls on the other side of the river. And on the other side of the river, we've got these larger buildings here, and then this small hut up on top of the hill. Overall, this is a very versatile map, I think. A very stylish one as well. I rather like it. And we've got several variants of it as well. This is the springtime variant of the map. The textures on the ground and the shade of green makes it feel like a very wet kind of area. Quite like that there. You can tell it rains a lot in this area. But as well, the layout's mostly the same here. We've just got, more greenery, leaves on the trees and all that sort of thing. I think it's quite a practical map as well, because we've got more than enough space down here in the streets to have various sorts of encounters. And then we've also got useful points like this bridge here being a narrow choke point, the hut up on the hill being a nice elevated area above everything else, but the river being the natural barrier, of course, and then, wide open space outside of town here for all sorts of exterior shenanigans. And this third variant of the map is quite a striking one. The desolate version of the map sees everything but the brick foundations of most of the buildings just entirely destroyed. The trees are dead, and the bridge has been washed away down the river. This could be the aftermath of a great flood, or perhaps a particularly devastating attack of some kind. Overall, I think this has a great aesthetic to it, and really kind of communicates the kind of desolation that has arrived here. I could see this sort of map being tweaked a little bit if you added a little bit of green lighting, for instance, made it nighttime. This could be good for a kind of undead village. The kind of place that's fallen victim to a necromancer rampaging through the area, that sort of thing. So let's move on to the next series of maps by Sevro. This first one is called the Dwarven Entrance, and features a climb up the side of a snowy mountain towards a gatehouse embedded in the rocks. I do love maps with a bit of an ascent like this. Something I could see a DM doing with this sort of map is doing survival rules for high altitudes and cold on a map like this. Maybe the party aren't necessarily trying to fight their way through monsters to get up here, but they're just trying to survive the thin air and freezing temperatures. Overall, pretty great looking map. The snow and the rocks really communicate the kind of inherent danger of this sort of place. But of course, this is just the first part of several maps we've got here. Let's have a look at the second one. The first map inside the mountain is the Dwarven Stronghold, or the lava version of it. As any good dwarf knows, the best place to set up industry is right on top of an ocean of lava, which is exactly what these guys have done. We've got embers floating up through the air and illuminating the orange haze that permeates the place, and lava flows through channels in the walkways, which makes the place a lot more hazardous, but is presumably very practical for smelting purposes. We've got a number of walkways around the ocean of lava here, some overlapping on top of others. I quite like this one down here, down by the lava surface, and then various statues dotted around the place, monuments to ancient kings or great smiths, all the kind of things that you would have in a sort of dwarven fortress like this. There's also a doorway deeper into the mountain, but first of all, let's have a look at the alternate version of this map we've got. This one is the dark version of the Dwarven Stronghold. Maybe the magma ocean levels have fallen, maybe it's all cooled down, or maybe they were never here, and small amounts of lava just gets piped down in here for use in their industry. Either way, it's much colder, darker, and is covered in a mysterious fog below the walkways. Again, we have the walkways overlapping each other. I quite like the one down here again, with the view over the darkness. And then over in the distance here, we again have the lava down the walkways here, and infusing these great pillars that these walkways are built on top of. Either way, it's a much colder, darker version of the map. It's still got the floating embers to imply the great heat, but overall, it seems like a much kind of calmer version of the map. Maybe this was an ancient forge from thousands of years ago that still hasn't cooled down. Speaking of, let's look at the next map. The third map in this series is the Dwarven Forge. This one's another very cool map, a large platform sitting out in the middle of a lava lake accessed by a bridge. Up above is a dwarf classic, a gigantic statue pouring lava down into the crucible of the forge itself. This sort of map would be pretty great for a boss encounter, or for the forging of a powerful artifact. A suggestion I heard for this map that I quite like, actually, would be if the party were here to forge an artifact or the like, and then once the creation was complete, they found the forge rapidly dark and quiet, the energy having been used to drain into the artifact that they've made. This might also let them enter in via the lava ocean version of the stronghold, and then exit out through the dark version. That's one idea, of course. There's also the opposite idea, that the party came in here to relight the fires, and so they come in through the dark version of the map, and then exit back out through the lava version. Either way, though, this map does work pretty great as just a standalone piece here. A great platform out in the darkness, perfect place for any sort of dwarf-themed boss encounter, and tied together with the other maps from Sevro this month. I think that's a pretty compelling narrative. Next up are some more maps from Violet, following on in their magical school theme. This one's very simple and very stylish, just called The Hallway. What they've done is made the side walls out of planes so that you can see through the backside. So this map looks pretty great from any angle. I always appreciate maps like this. Very straightforward, but very effective. You don't necessarily need a complicated map for it to look good. And this is obviously intended for the kind of magical school theme, but it could work for any sort of place where a long corridor is necessary. And you get some really stylish looks, like here with the lit pillars on the far side and the dark pillars on the close side, just from the lights illuminating them. This last one is the enchantment room, again in the magical school set. Another classroom type arrangement. We've got rows of desks lined up, and this magical crystal up at the front here, at the front desk. This one's got some interactivity, of course, similar to the other ones. So I'll just scroll back here. And so this is the usual kind of invisible text that the GM will be able to see. And you might be able to guess what's going on pretty quickly with this one here. So if I click on this sand trap button, then sand will start pouring in from the outside. And then I just need to click on this block below the floor here. Then you'll notice the sand slowly start to rise up into the room. So, very classic trap here. Sand pours in and suffocates whoever's stuck in here. It moves pretty slow, as you might have been able to tell, to give people a chance to kind of react. But overall, it's a very cool effect. It's pretty simple, too. Like, this sand here is actually just a piece of terrain below the map that slowly moves upwards because it's been set up as a vertically sliding door. So overall, there's nothing complicated going on in terms of, like, scripting or anything. It's just a door that looks like sand. Overall, a very cool effect. I rather like it. Always love to see a bit of interactivity in our maps here. Anyway, that is a quick look at this month's maps. We got some real belters in here. This month, we've had a bit of a problem because I managed to catch myself COVID in the middle of it here. So there's a bit of a delay with getting the props out this month. These maps will be released at the normal time, and then the new props will be released later on, once they're ready, we'll give you a message once they're done. As ever, any sort of questions, comments, and all that sort of thing are more than welcome down below in the comments or on our Discord. For now, though, I'll catch you later.
Okay, Dungeondraft users, here is like the city template that I created. You can use this, and then this gets into all the other pieces, things I've kit bashed to make this release work, stuff that I've updated. You can see how I made these interiors of these different levels of the towers, how I made the towers themselves, components I kit bashed together, and then you'll get into the yards. And you can just deconstruct these, and you can see it was made with moss. And you can see if you're using essential utils where that moss came from, what pack it came from, and how you can do the same thing. But we've introduced a lot of vegetation in this release, as well as some of these things like baskets and stuff. You can see how everything was put together, drag it apart, deconstruct it, see how to make your own. These are all of the different yards. You can see with all of the greenery in play. It was so much fun and so nice to bring all of this greenery into the palette. And just to give you some design ideas in terms of how you might architect and design your yards and the different kinds of stuff that you can kit bash together and drop in, and hopefully gives you guys some really good inspiration. Here's our pergolas, our different trees. You can see how I kit bashed together some of this ivy growing on these. And then here we get to the meat and potatoes, or maybe just the vegetables. This is your plants. We've got tons of big leaf plants. We've got ferns, we've got hard leaf plants, hedges, ivy. It's probably the thing I use the most. It's so flexible to spam ivy around. You've got soft leaf plants that can make good trees and bushes. And then you've got like other kinds of plants, potted plants, that kind of thing. You'll end up using all these. And then we introduce baskets. It's so nice to get the kind of woven texture and the basket texture into the library. And you can use these to fill them with stuff. You can use them as lids, right? So this might be a lid to another piece. It's just super flexible. Some of them make really good buckets. Like this one's got a transparent middle. You might want to use those for buckets. Here's all of our pergola, which also double well as cages. So wooden cages, cage tops. And then you've got all your stone wells that have different degrees of, bottomlessness. If you want any of these to be bottomless, just grab your shadow circle, spam it in the middle there, and you'll create a bottomless effect to your well. But hopefully you guys enjoy it. That's the Dungeondraft stuff for this month, but it really opens up your ability to decorate not only, urban environments like this, but you've got all this vegetation now to decorate your wild wilderness type of stuff. So let me know in the comments how you get along. Get ready for next month. We're going to go interiors. I've got so much stuff, good stuff for you guys to be able to decorate your interior. So get ready for that as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you made it this far, thanks for supporting the channel. Thanks for everything that you guys do for us. Hope you have fun playing with all these new toys. Let us know in the comments, or come join our Discord and post in there some of the stuff that you are coming up with or inventing. If you're having any problems or issues, we're easy to find on Discord. Just ping me, tag me personally to anywhere that you need some help if you're trying to get some help with using my assets or whatever. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great month, and looking forward to seeing what you come up with. And remember, there is a season premiere on the 5th. That's on Sunday. It's coming up May 5th, 2024. Our first live game is going to be hosted right here. It's an actual play game with the Familiars here on the channel, and we're going to host the entire season 2 of the Familiars here. So really looking forward to that. I'll be on commenting when the season premiere hits, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys then. In the meantime, have fun making your maps.